Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the PETHS Alumni Network podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we have a special episode where I'm joined by our three guests, all graduated in 2017. We have Joseph, Christie, and Jenn here with us today to talk about their experiences, at PET and beyond. Please introduce yourself. We'll start with Joseph.
Yeah, for sure. Great. So as Nathan mentioned, we are 2017 alum. So in terms of my undergrad, I studied at York. I went to Schulich. I did a specialization in accounting for my first 4 years. Then after, I pursued a master's of accounting also at Schulich for my CPA designation. For the first year and a half of my career after school, I worked in external audit, primarily within the Big Four. And now I jumped out into industry and I work in a senior internal audit role over at Noble Canada. And I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenn. I went to the University of Toronto and I studied international relations for my first 2 years. And then I switched into a program called Peace, Conflict, and Justice, hosted by the Munk School of Global Affairs. After that, I worked for a year. And then I am currently doing my master's at Johns Hopkins University. I'm currently working for the director of consulting. So my current clients are the U.S. State Department and then the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada Department.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christie, and I also did my undergrad at U of T. I studied sociology and a program called Ethics, Society, and Law. And then I went straight into my master's also at U of T at the Munk School of Global Affairs, doing my master's of Global Affairs. And then I've recently graduated in June, and I've been working for the government since. So thanks for having us, Nathan.
Of course, no problem. Thank you so much for the introductions. You guys all mentioned you're pursuing further education, which we'll touch on a lot later. Starting chronologically, I guess the first question I have for all of you is, what made you want to pursue the field that you're in, and then when did you kind of realize that further education was for you?
Okay, so I guess when I was in grade 12, I kind of had a dilemma of like, oh man, what I want to do. I'm not really good into sciences. My grades are kind of iffy. I'm like, you know what? Let's go into business. Let's see how it is, right? So within Schulich, you spend the first 2 years in a very generalized role. You take all the mandatory courses. So I got exposure to all different areas of business, right? Accounting, marketing, finance, consulting. And then I initially wanted to go into marketing. So my first year, my internship, I actually worked for a startup and a non-for-profit. I did digital content creation. And I'm like, oh shit, this is actually kind of hard. Like, it's kind of pushing me to learn a lot at once. I don't know if I can take it. So, years after, I was like, let's just see. I know everyone was talking about accounting. I'm like, you know what? Let's go into it and see how it is. Third year comes along. I decide to specialize in accounting. And I'm like, you know what? Let me see if I can get a corporate accounting internship. So then I worked in financial reporting. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting field for me. Let's see how far it can take it. I did that for 4 years, graduated, went into external audit, like pretty much every, CPA student does. And, for now, I'm just like, I really enjoy what I'm doing, right? Working in internal audit, you get to work a lot with the story behind numbers, right? And then for further education, I'm like, you know what? Down the line, I want to still be in touch with my school, my alum, right? I'm like, maybe a master's of accounting would be perfect, right? Maybe down the line, I can also utilize that to teach and whatnot. But I guess in terms of my interest for further education, it was just kind of like, I need to do it, so let's do it.
For me, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was like 8 years old, and I had to decide on a career, and I was subjected to the whole conversation of you can only do 3 things. You can be a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer. My parents are both, pretty well established. My mom's in global asset management now. My dad was trained as an economist, so, failure is not an option. But at the same time, I wanted to do fulfilling work and I really wanted to help people. So I felt, of the 3, law is the only one that really fits the bill. And then when I had gone into U of T, I had the opportunity to shadow a lawyer for a bit. And that's when I realized this sucks. And so I worked around that, and U of T's IR program is very well known. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. I don't think it really, had much to do with helping people. So I had somebody refer me to the PCJ program, and luckily it was a really good fit. Since then, I'm in the States now, so it's a very different ecosystem. But I feel as if, the industry here, private industry more specifically, allows you to make money, but then also do really exciting work. So that's precisely why I chose to leave Canada and leave Toronto, so I could explore that a little bit further.
And then I guess for me, I feel like pretty similar to Jen. You know, my sister wanted to be a lawyer growing up, and so for the longest time, I was like, if she wants to be a lawyer, I want to be a lawyer. Until for all through undergrad, it fluctuated between I want to be a lawyer, and then I don't want to be a lawyer because I realized it's not the lifestyle I think I would enjoy. To then taking a lot of kind of like more law related courses and being like, oh my goodness, I actually really enjoy this. But I was like so dead set now on not becoming a lawyer. And so I think one thing with like just arts, being an art student, was really taking the time to explore like the breadth of like various like opportunities and fields really in that field. It's like it's not just law. If you go into poli-sci, if you go into arts, like there are a lot of other options. And so I think I just kind of had a couple existential crises of not knowing what to do, but you really just strip it back down to like what do I enjoy? Like I enjoyed also kind of hoping to do something bigger than myself, contributing to other people. And sociology, I just took a couple courses and I was like, I love learning about inequality. And so I think with a lot of kind of what I've done, I kind of just stumbled into it, where I was like, I don't really know what to do. Let's go back to what I enjoy. Got into the undergrad programs. And then after graduating, it was kind of during COVID, wasn't really sure. I'm like, do I continue to do more school? I feel like everybody does more school, so maybe I should do more school. Kind of somehow ended up doing another degree. And then even during then, looking at internship, looking at like work opportunities, it was kind of like coming across professors and alumni who've just kind of helped me along the way and kind of shown me all the different opportunities there are, and it's kind of just stumbled into where I am. And I am grateful because I think it is I'm working in like more of like a policing industry, and it's a very, very unique one. And I'm really happy that I have an opportunity to kind of experience and see like policing culture, law enforcement in a very different angle. And so I'm excited to kind of continue to explore that, but also be able to contribute and like combine that with a little bit more of the helping people aspect. But I feel like I just kind of just stumbled my way here.
Yeah, all three of you kind of, it sounds like, you know, you didn't really have an idea of what you wanted to do. And, you know, we talked offline a little bit. You know, Joseph and Jen, you went to Castlemore, and Christie went to Stonebridge, which are all like, you know, very intense, I would say, environments where a lot of kids these days seem to know exactly what they want to do since they're in grade 1. So yeah, I guess like touching on that, you all like, you know, I would say decided in high school or even beyond what you want to do, but how about like when it came to where you studied? And I'm curious to know, Joseph and Christie, you guys returned to the same school, whereas Jen, you decided to take a different route and go international. I'm wondering if you guys can tell us a little bit about your decision applying for undergrad, and then your decision applying to your master's, how you decided where you studied.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start first. When you're going through your CPA courses, right, after you finish undergrad, you have to do a bunch of these courses after, right? And usually you can complete them with CPA Ontario, or you can kind of do them within a postgraduate. So what's the easiest route is, or the most optimal route, is to actually go to your undergrad and pursue your master's there. So for me, you know, a selection of just like, hey, I've already done undergrad, let's do the master's here. It wasn't really like, oh, I want to do it here, but it was more of like, I already did my undergrad, might as well. Also, I do want to chip in. I know that Jen and Christie, you know, you guys talked about being a lawyer when you were young. I think when I was young, I actually wanted to be a pro League of Legends player. Like when I was going to grade 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm like, wow, I really want to make it as a pro ADC. I'm seeing these Chinese players, they are going absolutely bonkers in their respective regions. But unfortunately, obviously, you know, like I'm not like an innate talented person. So I'm like, I'll push that aside and pursue my, you know, my corporate careers. I just want to put that out there though.
For me, I actually didn't know I'd be leaving. I always thought that I would just go back to the monk school. And if not the monk school, then it would be Oxford for me. But it was Hopkins who actually found me. And then when I did a little bit of digging, I found out, wow. So the program that I'm in is, you know, top 3 for global affairs, next to Harvard and Georgetown, which obviously sold itself quite quickly. But I had realized that for the type of work that I want to do, I needed a little bit more. I think learning about, you know, global security practice, where is the best place to do that? It's the United States, because they clearly do it very well. And so it was just an environmental change for me. I think I just wanted more options. But more than that, I think I just wanted to see what was out there because I knew that in private industry, if I ever wanted to pursue private, it would just be a better environment for me to be in. So it was just a preference thing. I think I connected really well with a lot of alumni. And as Christy said, I think alumni and having mentors really makes all the difference to, vouch for different options, basically expand your horizon because even despite being at U of T, which is a huge school, full of very high performing students, I think having diversity and really thinking outside your bubble is really important. So that was, my rationale.
And I guess for me, going back all the way to undergrad, why I chose U of T. I think I just applied to all of them, but in my head, I only knew if I were to stay in Canada, I would only go to U of T. And then I think it was like a combination of the programs and being in the city. I want to be in a major city. It was always between U of T and McGill because my sister went to McGill. So obviously a common theme is I always just wanted to do what she wanted to do, but I wanted to be a major school. I wanted to be a city. And I think that kind of translated all throughout my following career, my following decisions. And so after undergrad, in our third and fourth year was during COVID, and I feel like that's such a stereotypical excuse, but like truly at that point, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, we're graduating. I didn't know if I wanted to go back to school. I kind of didn't want to, but I also didn't know what else to do. And so I connected with a Monk alum who was really, really kind and really vouched and was like encouraging me to apply to Monk specifically, but also opened up other options. But I just thought at that point, I'm like, I don't know if I had the mental capacity to leave the country, like to go to Europe or to go to the States. And so I think there was the benefit of kind of U of T being very familiar. I knew some of the profs. I knew a lot of the alumni. It's a program that was right next to where I went to school for 4 years. And so with kind of the life circumstances, it was a really great option. But I think it was just a combination of meeting the right people who were able to kind of guide me in this direction. And I think I didn't really know what else to do. And I thought it was a really good option anyway. So I just went with it.
Mm-hmm. And I think you touched on the alumni part, which is really important. It's kind of why I started this page. I have a question for Jen. Has there been like a culture shock? Like what are some of the big differences, studying in the States versus in Canada?
Yeah. I mean, when I got here, and I think Christy actually touched on it a little earlier, but I think it's normal and honestly expected for undergrads to pursue higher education right out the gate. Here, it is the complete opposite. Majority of my classmates are mid-career, if not older. Because I chose to pursue kind of that security domain, a lot of them are military. So, I've had people who've served in Iraq, in Afghanistan, multiple tours. I have the Space Force. So Hopkins has the Space Force cohort here. So the types of classmates you get, the colleagues, are coming from so many different places. You don't even know that those places were possible. And I think that is very different. I think in at least at U of T, the majority of your counterparts are all in the same age as you. Going into grad school, that doesn't change. So it's very different to see somebody who is, a more mature student. Here, the reason for that is that typically employers sponsor you to get your master's. You're not paying out of pocket. But it was a big difference. And I think especially the things that people care about here as scholars, academics, professionals, like it's all over the place. And it was something that you have to get acclimated to, but I think it's been really rewarding. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I think we talked about it a little bit offline. Joseph actually brought up, you wanted to talk about some learning points from high school. That's this question for all of you. Let's start with Joseph first.
Yeah, for sure. I think something really big was I actually spent a lot of time, not focusing on, what I want to do, but kind of just getting different exposures to stuff. So honestly, for grades 9, 10, 11, 12, I probably spent a lot of time, outside of school, right? I played a lot of games. I played a lot of League of Legends, right? But I think that taught me a bunch of valuable skills that I could, transfer to my post high school life. But I guess the big thing is kind of, just don't feel like you're losing compared to the crowd. I think that's something that gets, it just hits you in the head when you're at PET. Everybody's like, go, 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 go. It's like the Toronto culture, right? Everybody's like, go, 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 go. You gotta do this. You gotta get 99. You gotta get. Honestly, one thing I know for sure, and because I had my own support group at the time, like, wow, take things slowly for yourself. Don't be afraid to fail. I honestly failed a bunch of things in high school. I'm not gonna lie. I almost failed grade 9 and 10 science. Don't get me wrong, right? But that it builds you, right? And then when you play games outside of school, you feel like you're wasting your time. You're not, right? You're learning how to create a balance for yourself. And I think that's something that you don't learn in school, but that's something that you'll pick up on eventually. But yeah, I think that's my high school tip, because I feel like high school students, I go on a daily walk every day around like 3 to 4 to kind of relax from work if I have time, if I have a break. And I'm like, some of these kids, they just look tired. I'm like, why? Relax. It's okay. Things will be fine, right? I think that's probably the biggest thing I can, provide from my experiences to the high schooler.
Yeah, I fully second everything. And I'm trying to empathize, with a high school me. It probably doesn't fully resonate, having somebody tell you it's okay to fail and it's fine to not know the answers, but just believe in it because it's true. I think what I would add is not just explore new things, new interests, but to actively look for opportunities that will help you understand operationally what, a career would look like. So, for example, I remember co-op. Take advantage of that, do a co-op, do in something that you might not actually think you would like, but that's your opportunity to figure it out. Because I think at this age, I just turned 25, it's really important to understand what something means at a granular level and what that would look like for you doing it for 10, 20 years. If it hadn't been for the fact that I had shadowed that immigration lawyer, I don't know. Who's to say like I wouldn't have just gone to law school and then realized, when it's too late that I really despise the experience. But I think, just to rewind a bit, it's never too late. You just have to put in the legwork and your diligence to figure those things out. But I fully agree with what Joseph said. Do what you like, because people don't do that enough. And that's why I went on to say that you need to figure out what you don't like, honestly. And I think that helps you really narrow down your choices.
I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. I feel like everything that has been said, and I guess it really is okay understanding that it's a process. And everyone told us when we were in high school and when we were in undergrad, and you never believe it, but now I guess now that we're in like our mid-20s, hopefully people in high school will actually listen to us, knowing that 10 years ago we were them. But truly, no one knows what they're doing. Like when you're like 16, you think people who are like 20 are so old, but like no matter if you're like 16, you're 20, even like people in their 30s, it's like you're still figuring it out, and there's always new opportunities and you can always change. I feel like change is a very good thing. It can be scary in the moment, but there's like you're always gonna, even if you found the perfect job, in a couple of years maybe you would still want to change. So it's like life is just always changing and you're always figuring it out. So there's no pressure to feel like every decision you're making is going to define the rest of your life. Like whatever undergrad you choose, or post grad or first job you choose, it's like these are all decisions where in the moment it feels like they're going to make or break your life, but they're really not. Like you're gonna go through change all the time. And I feel like one thing that I've kind of taken with me as I've gone through my career is really to like diversify your skills, because I guess for me, I'm a bit more of a generalist and I'm also still trying to figure out what I want to do. So I think there's always no harm in diversifying your skills and like taking on different opportunities where maybe on paper it doesn't look like it fits the direction you're going in. It doesn't fit on resume, it doesn't seem like it fits. But I think there's so much value in exploring different things, putting yourself in a very different situation, learning different skills, and it will always come in handy. I think equipping yourself can't go wrong. Like you're just betting on yourself. And I guess the last tip would just be a reminder that I think there are a lot of jobs out there. And so, we grow up with the few, and even in undergrad, you hear the few jobs being tossed around, but I think it is really realizing that there are so many different types of jobs, which is why if you stick with what you like, you will be able to find something that fits kind of what you're looking for. It could be as niche as like, I've had a friend who's like found a career out of combining like business HR and like data engineering, tech and coding. And she was like, I didn't even realize there was a job like that. So I think it's remembering that there are truly so many jobs out there, and to not worry too much, because it might not feel like it, but really everything will be okay and everyone is figuring it out.
Let me
Yeah,
add on that for a second, because I really think that's an important message, especially now that I'm remembering where we come from, is that you really don't know what's out there until you go out there. And I think, even for me, as somebody who was a humanities student, I am taking on files that, takes Microsoft's money to run analysis work on it. I'm a humanities student and I'm still doing tech adjacent work with such tech firms. Um, and I think that's what people have to remember is that, and then also the importance of mentorship. If you don't know, then ask, because I think a lot of times, and I remember because at U of T, it is such a big pool. But I guarantee somebody out there who is doing what you're curious about right now. So do reach out. Most people are very approachable, and ask them, because I think not even just mentorship, but sponsorship goes a very long way. People who are willing to pull you up with them. And if you, really articulate and come across as somebody who is passionate and this is something you like, it will be received very well. I think that's one thing I've noticed, especially about this town, because I'm in DC. So a much bigger version of Toronto is that passion sells. And so people can tell when you're not very invested in what you say you're doing. So do what you really enjoy.
Thank you for that. Yeah, those are great insights. I really do agree with all those points. Along the same lines, do you guys have courses or teachers from your high school time that you really look back on as valuable?
Okay, I'm gonna start. Sorry for butting. Okay, Mr. A, Comtech. That's okay. No, actually, I would say there's three: Mr. A, Mr. Shields, and Mr. Lamb. But I would say Mr. A is the most valuable, just because he gave a platform to kids to essentially express degeneracy in a sense, right? This course was built for kids to make videos that were entertaining. So essentially, you got to explore when you look at it, professional development. That's marketing that's basic at its core, right? You're learning how to distribute content and create engaging content for people. But he didn't teach it that way, and he made it such a fun and enjoyable class, so like kids could express themselves, make whatever type of videos they want. I remember I was sending somebody this another day, one of my coworkers. They're like, "Hey, what'd you do in grade 12 that was your favorite course?" I sent them a video I made, and it was literally like almost a rap video, right? So that is valuable because it kind of reinfuses your creativity, right? Something at PET, that's something you don't get. So I think Mr. A is probably one of my most valuable teachers.
I mean, I would say Mr. Colley. We were all in music, I think, through 9 through 12.
That's true.
And
I did him dirty.
yeah, I mean, I think, take it because, of, am I allowed to say this? Because it's a great way to get good grades. But it's also a class I think teaches you discipline and commitment, which I think at the time a lot of people dwelled on that. But it does teach you, show up. It doesn't matter what time it is. And I think that's obviously something we're all living with because we're all working now, and you don't have a say in showing up to your 9 to 5, but it does teach you what discipline is. It teaches you what teamwork is, having to be in a giant group of people. And having people rely on you for certain things, very applicable life skills. And I guess Mr. Logan and Mr. Davidson, if they're still there, I really enjoyed their classes.
I was also going to say Mr. Colley. He was the first person to come up to mind. I think for sure band, the commitment is hard. When you're in high school, you have to wake up like 7 every single week and then also stay until like 7 p.m. That is hard. But truly, no one, every time we were there, so was he. And
Mhm.
5 minutes early is on time. He would be there 15 minutes earlier than everyone else, even if we're 5 minutes early. And so truly, I think sometimes in the moment, because it is tough and it is commitment as a high schooler, it's hard to see it. But I think looking back, and I really do appreciate Mr. Colley because he walks the talk. He shows you dedication. He shows you passion. Like this man has been teaching music for years and he is still so passionate about it. And I think that is honestly kind of like it's something to look up to. He's a really good role model. He like preaches what he does. And I also did really enjoy Mr. Davidson's class. I loved the creativity. He is a really great teacher. And I really appreciate Mr. Rollins, who was our SAC advisor all throughout 4 years. So we kind of got to grow together in that way. It was his first year when I was in grade 9 on SAC, all the way up until grade 12. He's such a personable, approachable teacher, and I think he really wants the best for his students. So those were a couple highlights, and yeah, it's been a while since I've thought about them, but I do appreciate all the work that they put into helping their students.
So speaking on like the lessons that you learned in high school and some things that you take with you, how did all of your like mindsets change when you were in your master's compared to when you were in your undergrad?
Good
I'm
question.
gonna let Jenn and Christie because I feel like they probably have something more relevant, to be honest.
I mean, to be honest, I think when you're in your undergrad, you're still in that headspace of perfection is the only acceptable means. I think especially if you go to a big school, like a high-performing school that is notorious for its reputation on being harsh on students. And I think that, I don't have to say much for people to know, can be a really devastating mentality to have as a young person. But I think, after I passed my 4 years and I'm now in my master's, obviously that goes away. You realize that it's more experiential than anything else. And unfortunately, because, undergrad is what it is, it can take away from, I guess, the enjoyment of learning. I can't speak for other universities, but I think, for anybody who's thinking about going to U of T, find your circle, find your little corner, and support each other, because I think you can easily get lost, not in your, like you can get lost in your own head. And I think, Christy and I had each other, so she can probably speak to this too, but I think that's really important. Having a community, especially if you're going to a large school, helping each other study, going to find your professor, even though you have 800 other students in your class, taking advantage. Like, you really have to put in a lot of work to stay afloat. And I think that is worth thinking about when you're choosing your school, is what you really value out of those 4 years, and to think really beyond your school's reputation. And it's really hard, I know, but it's something that you should really think about, because after your 4 years, life gets better.
I feel like in undergrad, and I feel like, Jenn touched on this, you're kind of just constantly in survival mode, and you feel very alone at times because everyone is such a perfectionist and on the surface looks like they are completely put together, that it's very hard, I feel like, to not feel the imposter syndrome in those moments. So I feel like you're just constantly in survival mode. You're constantly trying to improve yourself, get the best grade, do as many extracurriculars as you can, stack your resume. Like all of that can really get to you. But I feel like, which is why having a community is so important, because those friendships do last beyond the first couple of years, that in those 4 years. And it is important to always remember to also enjoy the experience, because I think looking back, like undergrad was such a unique experience. I do look back and I miss it. I miss being that young and careless with no responsibilities, where all you're doing. you're just able to hang out with your friends, and whether it be studying till late at night or going out until super late, like I think that is such a important kind of childhood to growing up experience to really take some time, step back, and to kind of like not stress yourself out, but enjoy the moment. But then I think going into the masters, kind of after you spend so many years just kind of like focused on yourself, it is almost time to kind of also look beyond now. And it's like I spent so much. It's like you have to have confidence in your skills and your abilities and your network and the people and the relationships you build because you worked hard on it. Now you're able to kind of think a bit more of the future, think beyond yourself, and think about kind of like the world outside of your own. So I feel like it is important when you're in undergrad to enjoy it. Do find your community, and then also kind of as you continue in your educational career to kind of bring everything that you've learned, be confident in all that you've invested in yourself, and to kind of go into the world, whether it be the workforce or continuing in like your graduate cohorts with confidence in all that you know, because I think maybe you know a lot more than you think.
Yeah. Wait, let me say that the 4 years is definitely a coming of age transition, right? Like, and to be honest, I think remembering the school that PET is, it's very similar, honestly. Like I think everybody wanting exceptionalism is something that carries through. It definitely tracks. Like, and I think that can be a great thing. It can be very powerful, especially if you are somebody who, through osmosis, is very driven by the people around you. But it is very consuming. And I think one thing I'm trying to think back to is like choosing your school. I think if I could go back in time and, tell myself a few words of advice, I would say, you really have to almost develop a backbone when you go to a big school, because as much as, we say that failure is okay, you all have to be prepared. And I think you have to be acclimated as the years go on to accept things that don't go your way. Whereas I think in high school, most of the time, I think things go your way. Like, even if it's not necessarily what you were striving for, things are still fine. And I think the ability to accept uncontrollable factors is what you really understand in your undergrad. And I think, by the time I made it to my master's, that's something that I understand way more clearly now. But yes, it's all a process.
Yeah. Honestly, I guess my undergrad career was definitely a bit different than Jenn and Christie's, but I definitely resonate with the community aspect. Like I met some of my best buddies in first year. Like I don't know how often you can say that, but like I met some of my best friends in first year, and we weren't. I'm not gonna say we're not the brightest of the bunch. Like but we supported each other, right? We always made sure. Like when you're at Schulich, you can feel it. The moment you walk into the building or any business school, Nathan, I'm sure you can probably feel it, right? You're an IB student, like people just want to go, man. They just want to study. They just want to like look busy. And for me, I actually, funny enough, my master's and undergrad mindset has been the same. I've always been thinking, how can I optimize my studying habits? How can I make things easier for myself? I'm somebody like I need everything explained to me like I'm 5. Every single thing I do, I always try to incorporate that, whatever I do, right? So, going into business school, I'm like, I carried the same mindsets I had in high school, right? And for me, I had a flip side. I did really bad in high school, but I did really well in university because I just found it a bit more easier, especially the community aspect. Once you have your people, like you will go far. Like you guys will go far. And you need somebody though. You need a glue with your support group. You need somebody to constantly remind yourselves that, hey, everything's gonna be okay. We're all in this together. But yeah, the perfectionism aspect, I'm totally on the flip side. Like when I was an undergrad, I was like, shit, let me just go chill. Like I found like I don't know, for me, like I always just found ways to make things more efficient and study, more optimally for myself. So once again, I'm repeating this, I spent a lot of time playing League of Legends in my undergrad, probably from like first to third year. And then Masters came along and I was able to take the mindset I had in my third and fourth year and transpose it pretty well, because when you're taking accounting courses, it kind of feels like you're doing stuff how you would do it at work, right? And when you're at work, it's really easy to do a lot of things at once. But if you prioritize well, if you optimize your task, like you can get a lot of stuff done. So I carried that to my master's. But yeah, I just want to say that community aspect, it's really important. Regardless of where you're at, you could literally be any type of student. You always need that social support group.
I definitely think something you pick up is working smarter, not harder. Because in the real world, well, in any world, you cannot do it all. And Joseph and I talk about this a lot. It's not necessarily cutting corners, but just finding the most optimal
Yeah.
way of getting things done.
Mhm.
It's
I
not
think
really
you
a
all-
cheat, it's not really a cheat. Like you're doing something better. You're enhancing a process, right? Like why would you not
Yes.
want to pursue that?
What are some like aspirations that the three of you have? You know, it could be professionally, personally, anything.
Joseph, you want to go?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, I guess in terms of aspirations, given some things that have happened in my life, I used to kind of have like 5-year horizons, but I've been given a surprise every day in my life the past couple of months. So I'm not really too sure of my aspirations going forward, but definitely I still am going to, eventually continue within my designated field. I'm going to have my CPA in a couple of months. So, I think an aspiration I do have myself in terms of a professional side is, continuing on internal audit, seeing what accounting has to offer. If we can talk about the personal aspect, I think something that I've forgotten within the past couple of years is creating a really good work-life balance. When I was in external audit, I spent a lot of time working. I didn't even have time to go to the gym, right? And 2 years down the line, I'm like, shoot, I'm getting kind of fat again. I got to start working out. So I've kind of switched my focus from like a professional to more of a personal aspiration of like, okay, I need to prioritize, personal social aspects again. I got to be more in touch with that. So I guess in terms of aspirations, it's primarily on the social development. In terms of professional development, I had a great opportunity. I'm pretty much working in a company that's exposed to trades. Like I deal with a lot of HVAC and plumbers. Like this is crazy. I've never dealt with these guys, and they're so cool. Like I learned, and literally when you're internal audit, all you do is, hey, is this process being followed? If not, why? If so, what's an issue? But every day I go to work and I learn something new. So in terms of that, like aspiration wise, I'm not too keen on that. Just continue on.
I fully agree. In a different way. I think, well, actually, Christy knows and Joseph knows, but I am making a decision right now between two very different careers. One is based back home in Canada, which, I didn't really expect to follow my plate, but I am thinking about it. But either way, I hope to continue doing work that's really fulfilling for me and that I find exciting. And I think something that is helpful is that I'm at a school that is very similar to U of T in the sense where, everybody here wants to be a C-suite something at some point in their lives. Um, and I think, not that that's necessarily true for me, but I think I've always been very ambitious. So I would like to marry those things. I want to do something that's exciting, that's always new and challenging for me. Um, and we'll just see how far I can go with that.
I completely agree. Like every single one of those points is exactly what I'm also striving for. I want roles that are challenging. I want to be exposed to different things. I want to try things that I never knew before. Maybe people generally don't think to try. I want to, see the outside world. I want to be exposed. I want to contribute towards it while growing in the process. So I think I'm also just at a point in my career where I'm trying to explore and see and try a lot of different roles because there's so many jobs out there and really cool ones, and not everyone gets opportunities to do them, and I really want to get a shot. I'll try it, like it, could stay with it, don't like it, I'll change. But I do want kind of to have a fulfilling role, kind of feel like I'm really contributing to a purpose, um, be part of and just be challenged, be part of something that has like constantly moving parts and is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and growing through that. And then I guess like personal, I feel like it is important kind of like coming out of grad school. It was in June, I suddenly realized I had a lot of time to now invest in hobbies. And so I think as an adult, or even kind of, Joseph kind of touched on it, but throughout high school, undergrad, or any other point in your career, like it is important to take some time for yourself and to kind of, find ways to keep yourself sane, keep yourself organized, find ways to de-stress. It could be gaming, it could be journaling. That was what I really enjoyed. But yeah, I guess like as I continue to get a work, like find the balance with the work-life balance, invest in my hobbies, because now that we have time to do so, I think it's really important, but to also, continually find challenging roles and um, positions that are able to expose me to the world and all the different things that happen in the world.
Thank you so much for being on here on this lovely Tuesday night. And thank you everyone for watching this podcast, and we'll see everyone next week.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.